All right, hey everybody, TG here. It is December 8th. I hope everybody's having a good time out there. It's Wednesday. So let's get on with it. If anybody has any questions about who I am and this is first time being here, come check out profitpilot.com, and then you can see the newsletters that I write and the services that I do as far as market alerts, education, the Moxie indicator, all that kind of stuff. And if you like the way that I'm out here talking about the markets and trading, then come check it out, and we'll see you in the chat room. Imran, good morning. Good to see you. One of the things that I wanted to show is basically I think we keep seeing a whole lot of names just not recovering. There is a bit of a sneaky stealth bear market going on underneath the surface that the indexes seem to be hiding. But just another example, we've been seeing some earnings get really hit, some company earnings getting hit. And so for another example is Stitch Fix. They just had earnings, dropped even further, but it has been in a downtrend this entire time. So it's been pretty tough going for a lot of stocks out there like this. And, if this is Stitch Fix, it makes me wonder about, Express. If we're looking at something like this, it's on its way down. Is it just going to keep going? What about something like Fossil and how it's doing? All right, so can anybody hear me? Can we get a thumbs up if you guys can hear me or not? Hey Randy, I don't know if you can hear me out there. All right, are you guys able to hear me on this so far? Let's see. If you guys are able to hear me, yes. Okay. So far, it looks like we're good. And then let me double check. Okay, got audio now. I think I just was missing a button. So I'll kind of start over a little bit. I think that what's happening underneath the surface of the indexes is that we are seeing kind of a hidden, sneaky bear market because a lot of names are just, they just keep declining underneath the surface. Breadth is very poor. We're seeing 52-week new highs rapidly increase, and only a handful of stocks are holding the market up. I saw a stat the other day that only 4 stocks, of course the big ones like Amazon, Netflix, stuff like that, Facebook, are maybe not Facebook right now since it's going down, but there are only 4 stocks that are responsible for 70% of the S&P's gain over the last 6 months. So what I want to show you is, we had Stitch Fix down like this, Fossil is down, and then it makes me think about other stocks that are just going to keep wearing out. And a lot of these stocks are in the IWM. And what we're seeing here is that we basically saw a failed breakout with the IWM over the last few weeks. And this really has me concerned because what I've been telling the Moxie subscribers is that, this was really great. We were looking at this, fantastic. After 8-9 months, we finally get the IWM to make new highs. And, it's great, but hey, we are always looking for a pullback, right? We want to make sure that this stuff actually comes down and tests support. And this is exactly the reason. I mean, there just is no clear example of why I teach and talk about the first move versus the second move, and why I oftentimes look for the test, the pullback, the test of support, because this did not do that. And this is really important to know, that when price was coming back down to the daily 50 and I wanted to see it hold, let me zoom in here so we can see it exactly. And you can see right where it got to the daily 50 is exactly where it failed. And not only did it fail, it started to fail on huge volume. And then we got several more days of price down and big volume and all that stuff. So this is really not a good situation. And we've got this being oversold. So we got a little bit of a bounce. But the concern is, what if this, as price comes up into the underside of the daily 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0, what if this becomes basically the start of a short? Like what if this is actually when things start really selling off, especially in the IWM? And the markets can keep going up if the small caps lag, but I don't think they can really keep going up if the small caps actually start going down and actually start going into a bear market, which is what I'm concerned that we're seeing. And another way of viewing this is if we look at the ARK ETFs. And I know, people can have their opinions about that, but Kathy Wood and her ARC sectors, they focus in a lot of small cap area, kind of the higher risk area, and her stuff has not been doing well. And say what you want about her, all I'm using this as a tool, but the fact is, just like what I was concerned about with the IWM is, look here, ARC has gotten rejected by the underside of the weekly 50, and the Moxie indicator is very much below zero. It's been trending the whole time. In fact, here is the Moxie price trigger. So for those of you who don't have the Moxie indicator, or still trying to check me out, it's stuff like this that we need to look for. And the Moxie indicator does a really good job. Excuse me, does a really good job of calling this out as far as when momentum changes. The Moxie price trigger here helps tell us that the Moxie indicator has gone from positive to negative. The energy, the momentum, is now negative. And then on the monthly time frame, what I'm looking at here is price is now starting to get rejected by the underside of a downtrending monthly 10, and I think that's an issue. And I think we're seeing this manifest itself in the breadth of the market. And if we look here also, kind of this last move up right here was kind of the last failed attempt of price trying to go up. And so just like the IWM having that failed breakout, ARC, look at this, finally breaking lows. This is making new lows. And I think we need to be real careful and be concerned out there. So that's my general idea of what's happening. Let me take a look at some of the things that you guys are looking at. So Imran, good to see you. Let's see, Roblox. Right now, I do not have a trade here. So one of the things that could happen is if this is going to go long, then we need to make sure that price can hold the daily 21 and see if this can go up. But in order to prove that that's going to happen, I need to see price get back on top of the hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator above zero, and we don't have that. And I know that maybe, and this is kind of the sneaky part about trading, but you might say, hey, well, price is back over the hourly 50. Not the way that I'm looking for. I want to see price actually engage with an uptrending hourly 50. This is merely poking its head over the hourly 50. In fact, it's a downtrending hourly 50, and the Moxie indicator is below zero. So potentially, this could turn into an inverse trampoline move. So price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero. So you need to watch this and make sure that this doesn't end up getting rejected and heading back down, because ultimately the issue could be that giant gap between price and the daily 50. So keep an eye out for that and make sure it doesn't start crumbling on you. INBX. Let's see what this one is. I am not familiar with it. And let's look at the higher time frames so we get context. So generally speaking, it did get rejected at its previous high. So there's a double top, and you can also see right here at the third ATR. Okay, so then it pulls back to weekly 21 support and seems like it's holding it so far. Everything generally looks good. The Moxie indicator looks good. Everything looks like it's in an uptrend. All right, so now let's take a look a little bit lower down and see what we're looking at and if there's any support. Now actually, right off, I'm seeing exactly what I just pointed out on Roblox. Do you see right here how on INBX, price was trying to push up against a downtrending hourly 50 and the Moxie indicator is below zero? That's exactly the same thing that I just cautioned with Roblox. And you can see here with INBX, it also has a big gap between price and the daily 50. And look what it did. It's come back down to the daily 50 and actually went below the daily 50. So this is exactly the same thing that I just spoke about with Roblox, that we could have an issue of price moving down and needing to go back down to the daily 50 if it can't hold that daily 21. Now maybe on the flip side, this can also show us a little bit of an example of what we're looking for an uptrend, for an up move. So remember, Roblox was also at the daily 21 just like INBX was in the past. But the difference here on the hourly chart, this was a regular trampoline move. See how the Moxie indicator is still above zero, and see how price dipped below the 50? That having the Moxie indicator above zero meant that momentum and energy was still positive. It still wanted to go up. And so what we're looking at with this is that, trampoline move. It's like you jump on a trampoline, it shoots you back up. That's exactly what that did. That was a high pressure, high buoyancy type trade. It's like trying to push a beach ball underneath the water and it shoots right back up like that. And then where I was saying with Roblox that if it was going to go higher, what I want to see is price test the hourly 50 and get back over and follow the hourly 50. And you can see that INBX exactly did that. So, and that was because Moxie indicator is still above zero. The flip side comes in here where I start talking about the inverse trampoline move. You can see the Moxie price trigger, which means the indicator has now gone below zero. It's now negative. Energy, momentum, now negative. And that price could not hold the hourly 50, and therefore it fell off of the daily 21 back down to the daily 50. So hopefully that gives you a really, really good example of how I trade, what I'm looking for, and how to look for a positive versus a negative type move. Now, since we're still on here, notice that I talked about INBX as a trampoline move. Price below the 50, Moxie indicator above zero. Well, so far, it looks like we are seeing the exact same thing on the daily chart. So price below the daily 50, but the Moxie indicator still above zero. So this could be a trampoline move on a daily time frame, just like it was a trampoline move on the daily time frame right back there. So keep that in mind. And if this is going to continue to work, Imran, I know you know all the stuff that I teach. So what I am seeing here is price down, Moxie indicator flat. That is a form of positive divergence. But we're going to have to see just a little bit more clarity right here on the hourly chart. We're going to have to see that 50-250 maneuver. And so I'd love to see price actually engage with and hold that hourly 50 just like we kind of see right there. So keep an eye on it. It looks decent. We need to trust but verify. We need to say, okay, I think this is going to work. I think this is what I want to see. And we need to keep watching that to make sure it's going to go that direction. Austin, let's see, RIVN, Rivian, been wanting to stay short, but getting on top of the hourly. Let's see, let me go down to a lower time frame. Well, I see the reason you're talking about going short. This is a potential inverse trampoline move right here on the hourly. And what you guys can see is this was another inverse trampoline move right here, right there. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero, and especially if the 50 is still in a downtrend like it was. So if you're going to want to short something like this, and remember, I always use if you see a setup on, say, the hourly, I then use the next lower time frame to help guide me in that short. So for example, on the hourly chart, if we saw that this was an inverse trampoline move like this, then we need to look at the 15 and say, well, as long as price cannot hold the 15-minute 50, then it's a short. And that's exactly what you see right here. But for now, price is holding the 15-minute 50. So until this thing can break and start heading lower, you got to be careful with it. Now, maybe you can prepare for it and prep for it and keep this on your watch list and keep watching day after day after day until something happens because you're watching that hourly inverse trampoline move. Sure. But then you're going to have to look for, you need to have this break. And it would be great if you also saw the Moxie indicator go down and below zero, because you can see right here, that's where it started to break. So good call, good eye on that one. Thanks for bringing that one up. Let's see, then JTD, if we're looking at Tiger, I think this is another example of that kind of stealth bear market that we're seeing. There are a lot of names that used to be big names, really important, had a lot of hype around them, and were super strong, and were just doing great. But ever since, I mean, what is this, probably mid-March? Well, a little bit later, so a little bit after May, so June, we're talking, this is when this thing started to fall apart. So midsummer, starting to fall apart, and it has not done anything since. I still wouldn't trust this. I understand that maybe you're seeing the Moxie indicator here on the hourly, but this has been in a downtrend. Price has been underneath the hourly 200 the entire time, and every time it hits the 200, it keeps going lower. So really, until we see this thing turn around, and until you actually see price get on top of the hourly 200 or the hourly 50 get on top of the 200, or even the daily 8 get over the daily 21, you're just going to be in chop. So I would not try and catch these moves to the upside, or these little pops thinking, oh, this is going to be the time that this thing turns around. Now, we're in a time where I think we need to be real cautious, really safe, and if you're going to try and catch something like this, say, oh, I think it's done going down, it's going to start going up, you got to really, really confirm that, and don't catch these little pops, because I think, for example, let's look at cannabis. If you look at CGC, and you can see here that not too long ago, we had a little bit of excitement. I think the Republicans said that they were on board with the Democrats about legalizing or decriminalizing or something like that for cannabis, and we got a little bit of hope. Look at that. And so you got a little bit of a movement. Looked like price was trying to get over the daily 50. We did get the daily 8 over the 21, but you know what? It was shortly lived. It started to fail back below the hourly 50, the hourly 200, the 8 crossed below the 21, and it just couldn't do it. So this is my concern about if you go into something like Tiger or any of these other names that are just melting down. Like same thing with Zillow. Why am I thinking Z for Zillow? Here we go. Like, look at this. I do not want to be buying this. Maybe we should be shorting these things. Maybe they're going to keep going. Maybe they're going to go from $64 to $30. I don't know. But these are not names that I want to trade to the long side. Same thing with UPST. Seemed like a darling for a long time. I mean, this thing was incredible. Look at that thing. And then something faltered, and they had an issue. And you could see where it began. As I got to tell you, this is Moxie indicator for the win right here. Look at this. Inverse trampoline move right there. That was telling you, do not go long. Because if you were not trading with the Moxie indicator, or if you're only looking at the daily chart, you might be looking at this and say, oh yeah, that's totally constructive. Look, prices come back down to reality. It's no longer extended. It's pulled back to the daily 50. It's going to hold the daily 50, and we're going to buy it right here and go up. Well, if you use the Moxie indicator, and if you look at the lower time frame, the hourly chart was telling you, heck no, do not be in this thing. The hourly 50s in a downtrend, the Moxie indicator is very far below zero, and you could see that it had 2 inverse trampoline moves right there just before earnings. I mean, there was a pretty good telltale sign of what's going on here. So, Upstart not doing well. Maybe I see that it's coming into the daily 200. Maybe there's a bounce, but I wouldn't be trusting something like this. And JTD, same thing about uranium. I mean, URNM as far as an ETF. Look at that, not holding up. Until we see something change. Until we see this. Until we see the Moxie indicator go positive and price get over the hourly 50 and follow the hourly 50, we're nowhere near that. We're just not there. We're poking over the hourly 50, but we have not confirmed to hold it. The Moxie indicator is still below zero. It's just not in a uptrend. Even if you look at URA, not looking good. There are just a lot of things out there that are not looking good. I see another one that you guys are talking about, JMIA. Same thing. Look at this thing. Nothing good. Nothing's going on here. It dropped after earnings, and sure, maybe you got some day traders out there that are trying to, it looks like there was maybe a little bit of a short covering rally here because price was starting to get a little bit too oversold. And you could see that because price was running the third ATR, and it finally just got too oversold. Maybe it hit some support levels and it bounced. But you know what? This sure looks like just a bounce and a downtrend to me. Maybe it's a great place to short it. I don't know. But I don't see anything constructive in names like this that we want to be going long in. APPS. Let's see if there's anything going on here. Now it's the same thing. Like, look at this. It's very, very much in a downtrend. Nothing good is happening here. And you want to see where this thing triggered? Check this out. Yet again, inverse trampoline move right there. Price over the hourly 50, the Moxie indicator below zero. And kind of like what I talked about in the beginning of today's session about one of those names that Imran, I think it was Roblox, here, where price was too far away from the daily 50, boom, down. And how did it start? It started on the hourly chart with an inverse trampoline move. So, yeah, there's a little bit bounce today. Yeah, the hourly Moxie indicator is firing. But you know what? The daily chart, so far away from being ready. It's just not even ready. And the hourly chart, if we follow the rules, we're going to need to see price hold the hourly 50. And if you want an example, right here. This is a perfect setup. Price got over the hourly 50, pulled back into the hourly 50. Moxie indicator fired green, and then this thing started to hold the hourly 50 and move up. And then you know what you get? Trampoline move, trampoline move. And that is the anatomy of a long trend. We're just not there yet. So I know I got a lot more questions out there, but I think you guys are starting to see what I'm talking about, and very concerned about stuff out there. This market is, I think, getting a little bit sketched out. Breadth is not looking too good, and it just things are not, they're not running easily. This is not a very easy trending market, and basically the only stocks that are up are the big ones, and they're the ones holding the indexes up, and I think we need to be on our toes about what's going on out there. So just as a reminder, since we'll wrap this up, TG Watkins here, Profit Pilot. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and come check out my newsletters. Come over to the Moxie subscription. We do, I'm in there all the time. I do weekly videos. We do monthly live trading for a few hours. We just had one yesterday. So a lot of information gets out there, and if you guys want to see what's happening out in the market, this is a good place to tune into. So you guys enjoy, and I'll see you next week. Thanks again.